If it's not one thing, it's something else. Autumn has to go to the emergency room. It could be worse. Autumn, you're still alive, unlike Alexis. While Autumn was away at the doctor's, Rubik's Cube was fixing things around the house and freaking out. She couldn't believe she gave a sim job to Shanna Kealoha. She's officially cheated on Zayden, and she didn't even get anything out of it. She felt awful, but thank goodness no one else knew, especially not Shanna. Zayden could never find out. Speaking of Shanna, she was wide awake, doing what she does best, while Christopher forced himself to eat, feeling empty as he stared at the lonesome chair across from him. Aurora had woken up, analyzing the world surrounding her, and her mummy Shanna had completed her aspiration. Damn girl. Already, I didn't even finish Alexis's. Oasis had woken up and was fussing. Since Autumn was still gone, Christopher helped Shanna with the babies. She gave Oasis a bottle and Christopher played with Aurora before taking her over to the playmat and introducing her to tummy time. Shanna Kealoha. What the actual Anyways, Autumn eventually got home. Turns out she needed surgery. There's always some shit going on with you, Autumn, isn't there? But what would make her day better? Seeing her siblings, Edward, Ezra, and Nicole had all come over to meet Autumn's new baby and to talk about their mother's funeral. Being surrounded by and comforted by her siblings was exactly what Autumn needed. Probably what they all needed. Oasis was sleeping, so Autumn picked up our air and brought her outside to meet her aunt and uncles and to get some fresh air. She went and introduced Aurora to Uncle Edward first. He was so excited to finally meet her, and so excited that Nina, Micah, and Lila have another new cousin to play with. Edward, where are you taking the child? I'm guessing to Uncle Ezra, who was busy doing push-ups on the bridge. Girl, what the hell just happened? And now, a midlife crisis. Autumn, you are insufferable. Now, it was Uncle Ezra's turn to meet his niece, him hoping that it would go better than how it did with Sage. Luckily for him, Aurora liked him. Chris and Clint caught onto the family visit, them gathering around outside and catching up with one another, and listening to Ezra practice the speech he'd be giving at his mother's funeral. And lastly, it was time for Aunt Nicole to meet little Aurora. And it didn't go so well. The poor seaman demon is scared of the vampire LMAO, but Nicole, our emotionally stable queen, couldn't be bothered. And Rat Race, our emotionally unstable queen, was too stressed to greet her family. Shanna was inside picking a new spellcaster perk and choosing a new aspiration since she completed her old one, spell casting and sorcery. Sammy, you get a sim job from Clint's sister and have the nerve to flirt with him after. You're such a dog. Ezra found his way upstairs to Oasis, introducing himself and playing toys with her. And it was then when he couldn't help but hear his father Chris sobbing downstairs. He'd never seen his dad so upset. It was so depressing, but he assured his father that he had nothing to worry about. He and Edward took care of everything for Mom's funeral. It would be held tomorrow morning at a church in Evergreen Harbor. All he had to do was show up, and all he had to do was be excited for Ezra. He announced his engagement to Mason Meshram, and Chris was the first one to know about it. He was hoping it would cheer him up a bit, and it seemed like it did, or at least momentarily. Chris then went upstairs to go back to sleep, and that's when our Gen 2 twins discussed their mom's funeral privately, how everything had to be perfect, especially for their dad, and even though this whole situation was sad to think about, Autumn wouldn't let that stop her from messing with her brother. Oh shit, Red Bull gives you wings is fighting Patchy the Scarecrow. What did he do? She's so stressed and taking it out on everyone. And since Autumn was doing better and the whole Volkov family was here to visit the babies, Shanna used this opportunity to go back to the Magic Realm and see if the Deathified Tome was available for purchase yet. It was one of the 3 spells left she had to learn, and once she learns it, she can finally reunite the Volkov family with Jacob. And luckily for her, the Deathified Tome was in fact in stock. Before heading back home, she headed to the spellcasting headquarters to learn the last 2 spells she needed from the sages of magic Rico, Felix, and Kelly. She also updated them on her progress. All of them were so proud of her and very impressed with the speed of her learning. And that's when Kelly mentioned to Shanna that perhaps she should now look into joining a coven. A sense of community is essential for a spellcaster, especially once they've learned all the spells and are no longer studying and practicing their craft as much anymore. Shanna thought about it as she cracked open the Dedethify tome. She'd never even considered covens existing in the spellcasting community. She thought that was something for witches, who were mythical creatures to begin with. But it would be nice to make spellcaster friends besides the sages. It was something she'd definitely look into next time she comes back to the realm of magic. And finally, Shanna had learned every single spell there is to know, including the one to bring Jacob Volkov back to life. Her life goal of becoming a virtuoso was complete, and she couldn't feel any more proud of herself. And just in time for Sage's birthday tomorrow, she was so excited. But her wife Autumn certainly couldn't say the same thing. All this talk about death reminded her of her late brother, Jacob, so she went to visit his grave for the first time in what felt like ages. She knew Shanna would be bringing him back one day, and she didn't want to rush her. But God, it would be so nice to see him again, to hug him, to share her life with him. She was in such a dark place after he died. She didn't know how she survived it, but she did. And with the death of her mother, she'd be lying if she said she hadn't thought about dabbling in her old habits. She's happy with her life, but when she thinks about her mother's body lying on the ground in Granite Falls, she feels almost as empty as she did when she found out about Jacob. She can't let herself get to that place again. She's not a young adult anymore. She's a civil designer, a freelancer, a wife, and a mother now. She has responsibilities, but once an addict, always an addict. And she had a major fear that she wasn't going to be able to stay strong forever. She tried to be optimistic like her wife, throwing a coin into the nearby fountain for good luck. And just like her big sister, Ribbit was a mess over the death of her mother too. And Zayden. And what happened with Sammy. She felt so guilty and disgusted. She texted Zayden to ask him to go with her to her mom's funeral tomorrow, and he agreed. Maybe then they can talk about the Granite Falls situation. But right now, she needed to get out of the house, let loose and forget, even if it was just by herself. And that's when she noticed someone, the hee-hee-looking ass Sim that texted her during her Granite Falls trip. Young Goff. What was he doing here? I mean, he did say he wanted to hang out with her and she's all alone. Wouldn't now be the perfect time? She called him over, and right off the bat, he was being bold. He noticed her sadness, so she told him about her mother dying and her funeral being in the morning. He comforted her and continued flirting with her, taking advantage of a grieving woman. Oh, Addison Chopra's brother, you're icky. Restore faith in humanity. Please stop giving ugly men a chance. He offered to buy her drinks, proceeding to flirt with her. And it seems like that was when Rockefeller finally woke up. What on earth is she doing? Why is she spending time with other guys when she's in a committed relationship? She can't cheat every time things get hard. Relationships aren't always going to be easy. Zayden fucked up, and so did she. They needed to talk about it. Really talk about it, not avoid it. How else are they supposed to grow? They're soulmates, after all. Girl, I know you did not just whip out a whole raw steak in the middle of the club. And Jung is still into her. Alright then, she wanted to go home, but if she goes home, she'd be going right back into the heavy grief looming throughout her house, so she stayed out for a while longer to dance with Jung, feeling sorry for him, because he had no idea that this would be the last time he'd ever see her. When the sun began to rise, she told him goodbye. She had to go bury her mother.